Hey, happy Friday. Woo, weekend. So how can you tell if Ceci did the filming for a video on 2 different days? She's dressed completely differently. Oh well, enjoy the reading. Mom pulled into the circular driveway behind the church at 4:56. I pretended to fiddle with my oxygen tank for a second just to kill time. Do you want me to carry it in for you? No, it's fine, I said. The cylindrical green tank only weighed a few pounds, and I have this little steel cart to wheel it around behind me. It delivered 2 liters of oxygen to me each minute through a cannula, a transparent tube that split just beneath my neck, wrapped behind my ears, and then reunited in my nostrils. The contraption was necessary because my lungs sucked at being lungs. I love you, she said as I got out. You too, Mom. See you at 6. Make friends, she said through the rolled-down window as I walked away. I didn't want to take the elevator because taking the elevator is a last days kind of activity at support group, so I took the stairs. I grabbed a cookie and poured some lemonade into a Dixie cup and then turned around. A boy was staring at me. I was quite sure I'd never seen him before. Long and leanly muscular, he dwarfed the molded plastic elementary school chair he was sitting in. Mahogany hair, straight and short. He looked my age, maybe a year older, and he sat with his tailbone against the edge of the chair, his posture aggressively poor, one hand half in the pocket of dark jeans. I looked away, suddenly conscious of my myriad insufficiencies. I was wearing old jeans, which had once been tight but now sagged in weird places, and a yellow t-shirt advertising a band I didn't even like anymore. Also, my hair. I had this page boy haircut, and I hadn't even bothered to, brush it. Furthermore, I had ridiculously fat chipmunk cheeks, a side effect of treatment. I looked like a normally proportioned person with a balloon for a head. This was not even to mention the cankle situation. And yet, I cut a glance to him, and his eyes were still on me. It occurred to me why they call it eye contact. I walked into the circle and sat down next to Isaac, 2 seats away from the boy. I glanced at him. He was still watching me. Look, let me just say it. He was hot. A non-hot boy stares at you relentlessly, and it is, at best, awkward, and at worst, a form of assault. But a hot boy? Well. I pulled out my phone and clicked it so it would display the time. 4:59. The circle filled with the unlucky 12 to 18s, and then Patrick started us out with a serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The guy was still staring at me. I felt rather blushy. Finally, I decided that the proper strategy was to stare back. Boys do not have the monopoly on the staring business, after all. So I looked over at him as Patrick acknowledged for the 1000th time his balllessness, etc., and soon it was a staring contest. After a while, the boy smiled. Then finally his blue eyes glanced away. When he looked back at me, I flicked my eyebrows up to say, I win. He shrugged. Patrick continued, and then finally it was time for introductions. Isaac, perhaps you'd like to go first today? I know you're facing a challenging time. Yeah, Isaac said. I'm Isaac. I'm 17, and it's looking like I have to get surgery in a couple of weeks, after which I'll be blind. Not to complain or anything, because I know a lot of us have it worse. But yeah, being blind does sort of suck. My girlfriend helps, though, and friends like Augustus. He nodded towards the boy, who now had a name. So yeah, Isaac continued. He was looking at his hands, which were folded into each other at the top of a teepee. There's nothing you can do about it. We're here for you, Isaac, Patrick said. Let Isaac hear it, you guys. Then we all in a monotone said, We're here for you, Isaac. Michael was next. He was 12. He had leukemia. He'd always had leukemia. He was okay. Or so he said. He'd taken the elevator. Lita was 16 and pretty enough to be the object of the hot boy's eye. She was irregular, in a long remission from appendicitis cancer, which I had not previously known existed. She said, as she said every other time I'd attended support group, that she felt strong, which felt like bragging to me as the oxygen-drizzling nubs tickled my nostrils. There were 5 others before they got to him. He smiled a little when his turn came. His voice was low, smoky, and dead sexy. My name's Augustus Waters, he said. I'm 17. I had a little touch of osteosarcoma a year and a half ago, but I'm just here today at Isaac's request. And how are you feeling? Asked Patrick. Oh, I'm grand. Augustus Waters smiled at the corner of his mouth. I'm on a roller coaster that only goes up, my friend. When it was my turn, I said, "My name is Hazel. I'm 16, thyroids with meds in my lungs. I'm okay." The hour proceeded apace. Fights were recounted, battles won amid wars sure to be lost. Hope was clung to, families were both celebrated and denounced. It was agreed that friends just didn't get it. Tears were shed, comfort proffered. Neither Augustus Waters nor I spoke again until Patrick said, "Augustus, perhaps you'd like to share your fears with the group." "My fears?" "Yes, I fear oblivion," he said without a moment's pause. "I fear it like the proverbial blind man who's afraid of the dark." "Too soon," Isaac said, cracking a smile. "Is that insensitive?" Augustus asked. "I can be pretty blind to other people's feelings." Isaac was laughing, but Patrick raised a chastening finger and said, "Augustus, please, let's return to you and your struggles. You said you fear oblivion." "I did," Augustus said. Patrick seemed lost. Would anyone like to speak to that?" I hadn't been in proper school in 3 years. My parents were my 2 best friends. My 3rd best friend was an author who did not know I existed. I was a fairly shy person, not the hand-raising type. And yet, just this once, I decided to speak. I half raised my hand, and Patrick, his delight evident, immediately said, "Hazel!" I was, I'm sure he assumed, opening up, becoming part of the group. I looked over at Augustus Waters, who looked back at me. You could almost see through his eyes, they were so blue. "There will come a time," I said, "when all of us are dead. All of us. There will come a time when there are no human beings remaining to remember that anyone ever existed, or that our species ever did anything. There will be no one left to remember Aristotle or Cleopatra, let alone you. Everything that we did and built and wrote and thought and discovered will be forgotten, and all of this," I gestured encompassingly, "will have been for naught. Maybe that time is coming soon, and maybe it's millions of years away. But even if we survive the collapse of the sun, we will not survive forever. There was a time before organisms experienced consciousness, and there will be a time after. If the inevitability of human oblivion worries you, I encourage you to ignore it. God knows that's what everyone else does." I'd learned this from my aforementioned 3rd best friend, Peter Van Houten, the reclusive author of An Imperial Affliction, the book that was as close a thing as I had to a Bible. Peter Van Houten was the only person I'd ever come across that seemed to A, understand what it was like to be dying, and B, not have died. After I finished, there was quite a long period of silence as I watched the smile spread all the way across Augustus's face. Not the crooked little smile of the boy trying to be sexy while he stared at me, but his real smile, too big for his face. "God damn," Augustus said quietly. "Aren't you something else?" So, I hope y'all enjoyed that. There'll be one more segment of this first chapter. See y'all next week.